You know, there was a moment when the entire world genuinely believed BTS was finished. They disappeared one by one into military barracks. The stages went silent. No group concerts, no group albums. Major media outlets started running headlines like, "Is the BTS era finally over?" And some fans began to wonder, could these 7 men ever come back the way they once were? But then, Jimin, Jungkook, and Jhope did something that left the entire world speechless. And today, we are going to walk through every single part of it, from the lowest point, through the incredible solo journeys, all the way to the comeback that CNN itself called the comeback of the century. Buckle up, because this is not just another K-pop story. This is a story about dedication, sacrifice, and proving yourself when nobody believes in you anymore. We need to go back to September 2022. This is where everything began. In a live stream watched by millions around the world, BTS announced the one thing no one ever wanted to hear. They would be stopping group activities to focus on individual solo projects, and then each member would serve their mandatory military service. That was the moment the heartbeat of Army worldwide seemed to stop. And the problems did not end there. One by one, they entered the barracks. Jimin, the oldest member, was the first to enlist. The others followed in succession. Suga served as a social service worker. Jhope entered the military and was only discharged on October 17, 2024, after 18 months of service. RM and V completed their service on June 10, 2025. Jimin and Jungkook followed the very next day, June 11, 2025. And Suga wrapped up his duties on June 21, 2025. Nearly 3 full years. 3 years. And the 7 members of BTS could not be in the same room together. And in the middle of that silence, the controversies kept coming. In December 2025, RM admitted during a live stream that as BTS's leader, he had considered tens of thousands of times whether it might be better to just disband the group. That statement shook the fandom to its core. Army all over the world was asking, is this truly the end of BTS? But behind all of that, 3 men refused to stand still. Jimin, Jungkook, and Jhope used those years to prove something, not just to the world, but to themselves. Let's start with Jung Hoseok, the man the world knows as Jhope. Jhope was the first among the later enlisting members to complete his military service. He walked out of the barracks on October 17, 2024, after 18 months of serving his country. And what did he do the moment he got out? He hit the ground running. In January 2025, Jhope announced his first ever solo world tour, titled Hope on the Stage. This was no small affair. We're talking about 31 scheduled concerts across major cities in Asia and North America: Seoul, Tokyo, Los Angeles, Manila, Singapore, Bangkok, Taipei, Osaka, and more. In Los Angeles, Jhope performed at BMO Stadium and broke the record as the Asian artist and solo artist to bring the largest single-night crowd to that venue, 24,000 fans in a single evening. And the finale of the tour came at the Goyang Main Stadium in South Korea on June 13th and 14th, 2025, falling precisely on BTS's 12th debut anniversary. Over those 2 nights, 54,000 people showed up to witness it. Jhope performed for 3 full hours with relentless energy, delivering tracks from his debut solo album Jack in the Box and the special album Hope on the Street Volume 1. But what made that closing night unforgettable was a single, stunning moment. Jimin and Jungkook appeared on stage as surprise guests. The audience broke down completely, because after years apart, seeing 2 BTS members perform side by side again felt like a signal, a whisper that something much bigger was coming. Jhope's solo journey had already been extraordinary before that tour. In March 2024, he released EP Hope on the Street Volume 1, which reached number 5 on the Billboard 200, a staggering achievement for a solo K-pop EP. And before that, his debut studio album Jack in the Box, released in 2022, had already broken into the Billboard 200 Top 10. Jhope did not just prove that he could stand on his own. He proved that he belongs among the greatest performers in global music, not just K-pop, but the entire world stage. Now let's talk about Park Jimin. And if you thought Jhope was jaw-dropping, just wait. Jimin enlisted in the military in December 2023 and was not discharged until June 11, 2025. But before he walked through those barracks gates, he had already prepared a gift for every single army on the planet. On July 19, 2024, while Jimin was still deep in his military service, his second solo album dropped. Its name, Muse. What happened next was K-pop history that had never been written before. Within the first 24 hours of release, Muse shot to #1 on the iTunes charts in 112 countries, including the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Germany, and Italy. 112 countries, simultaneously. And the lead single, Who, debuted at #1 on both the Billboard Global 200 and Billboard Global XGL US charts. With 90.5 million streams and over 129,000 units sold in just the first week. The track also claimed the title of Biggest Pure Sales Week on the Billboard Global 200 for the entire year of 2024. But there is more. Muse became the first K-pop album to reach 900 million streams on Spotify in 2024. On its very first day of release, the album racked up 22.74 million streams, making it the biggest album debut of 2024 by any Korean artist and the 12th biggest album debut of that entire year across all genres. And the most mind-bending part of all, the album kept charting on the Billboard World Albums chart, not for a few weeks, for 80 consecutive weeks. That is the first and only record of its kind in K-pop solo history. In 2025, Billboard ranked Muse 3rd on their annual chart, and Jimin became the only K-pop artist ever to appear on the Billboard World Album Artist Year-End chart for 3 consecutive years. Remember, all of this happened while Jimin was inside military barracks. He could not attend a single event, no live promotions, no television appearances. His music spoke entirely for itself. Before Muse, his debut album Face, released in March 2023, had already made him the first South Korean solo artist to reach #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. And Face itself peaked at #2 on the Billboard 200. In Billboard's fan-voted poll for the best K-pop album of 2024, Muse swept the vote with 41%, beating out every other album in the running. Remarkably, 4 of the top 5 spots were claimed by BTS members. Jin's Happy at #2, RM's Right Place, Wrong Person at #3, and J-Hope's Hope on the Street Volume 1 at #4. Jimin did not just win the charts. He redefined what it means to be a solo K-pop artist. And then there is Jungkook, the golden magne who simply never stops proving himself. His debut solo album, Golden, released in late 2023, landed at #80 on the Billboard 200, making it one of the most successful K-pop solo albums ever on that prestigious chart. On the Billboard year-end charts of 2024, Jungkook achieved the highest ranking among all Korean artists in the top artist category, claiming the 60th spot. His songs from Golden held on across global charts with consistency. 7 placed 15th on the Billboard Global Year-End 200. Standing Next to You came in at 36th, and 3D landed at 129th. On the Billboard Global 200 Artist chart, Jungkook ranked 14th, a number almost unthinkable for any Korean artist. Standing Next to You even reached #5 on the Billboard Digital Song Sales chart, proving that the song was not just being streamed. People were actually buying it, all over the world. And beyond the music, Jungkook deepened his bond with Jimin through the reality travel show Are You Sure?, which aired on Disney Plus in August 2024. The show followed the two of them on a journey together, giving ARMY around the world exactly the comfort they needed while waiting for the full group to return. Jungkook is the kind of artist who, when he sings, you cannot stop listening. When he dances, you cannot look away. And everything he built as a solo artist was only the beginning of something far, far larger. Mid-2025, all 7 members of BTS finally completed their military service. And then something happened that had not happened since 2019. All 7 of them, RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook, moved into a house together in Los Angeles. For 2 full months, they lived together, ate together, and most importantly, made music together. RM described their routine in an interview with GQ. 6 days a week, structured like businessmen. Mornings were for physical training. After lunch at home, they headed to the studio and wrote and recorded with rotating teams of collaborators until late in the evening. It felt like being trainees again, RM said. Except this time we arrived with years of stadium tours and billions of streams behind us. On July 1st, 2025, in a Weverse livestream watched by over 7.3 million fans in real time, the first time all 7 members had broadcast live together since September 2022, RM made the announcement the world had been waiting for. "We're going to release a new BTS album in the spring of next year," he said. "Starting in July, all 7 of us will gather and begin preparations. Since this is a full group album, it will reflect everyone's thoughts. We're approaching it with the mindset of going back to our roots." Visual. Fan comment screenshots overflowing with emotion. Jimin and Jungkook were equally fired up. During a Weverse Live on July 14th, 2025, Jimin announced with unmistakable energy, "We've been working really hard. To put it simply, we are on fire." And Jungkook followed. "Next year's spring, no matter what the results are, we have to release something. Our army has waited so long. We can't delay it anymore." In November 2025, Jimin confirmed the album had finished recording. And on January 16th, 2026, BTS officially announced the album's name, Arirang, a name taken from a centuries-old Korean folk song, believed to have originated as far back as the Joseon dynasty between 1392 and 1910, existing in hundreds of variations across generations. A song associated with the emotions of connection, distance, and reunion. There could not have been a more perfect name. March 20th, 2026, Arirang dropped worldwide. 14 tracks. Over 4 million pre-orders before release. Cumulative sales projected to reach 6 million copies. But the most historic moment came one day later. March 21st, 2026, 8 p.m. Korea Standard Time. At Gwangwon Square, the iconic historic plaza at the heart of Seoul, South Korea, a place where no K-pop act had ever before performed, BTS took the stage. And this was not a ticketed show. This was a free concert, open to everyone. The result? Around 104,000 people flooded Gwangwon that night. The concert was streamed live to 190 countries through Netflix, marking the streaming giant's first ever exclusive live broadcast of any kind. Directed by Hamish Hamilton, the same man behind the opening ceremony of the 2012 London Olympics and countless Grammy and Oscar telecasts. RM opened the show with the simplest words that may have ever shattered a crowd on any stage anywhere. "Hello, we are back." And the world exploded. All 7 members appeared in sleek black and white outfits. They opened with Body to Body, one of the fresh Arirang tracks. The energy that erupted from that stage was felt by all 100,000 plus people standing in that square, and by millions more watching through Netflix across the globe. They performed new tracks from Arirang, but they did not forget the songs that had become global anthems. Butter, Dynamite, Mic Drop. As if telling the world, "We are still the BTS you know. We never left." Professor Hae-Jin Lee of the USC Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism called the moment the comeback of the century, and said it was the first time in a long while we have seen BTS as a group performing. And the impact of that single night? Data from the Korea Tourism Organization showed that foreign tourist arrivals in Seoul surged 26.7% in March 2026 compared to the same period the year before. Approximately 2.04 million foreign tourists visited Seoul throughout March 2026, a 33.2% increase compared to March 2019, before the pandemic. BTS did not just release an album. They moved the economy of an entire nation. But the Gwangwon concert was only the beginning. 2 days after Seoul, BTS flew to New York for a Spotify event. Then on March 25th and 26th, 2026, they appeared on 2 consecutive nights of The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon on NBC. Mainstream American pop was brought to its knees. And then the Arirang World Tour 2026 to 2027 began. Over 70 concerts across the globe, Asia, North America, South America, Australia, and Europe. Kicking off in South Korea in April 2026 with 3 nights at Goyang Stadium, running all the way through to March 2027. Every single ticket sold out the moment it went on sale. This is not just the biggest tour in BTS history. By the analysis of many industry observers, it is one of the most ambitious live music tours in the history of pop music worldwide. Alongside the tour, Netflix also released the documentary BTS: The Return on March 27, 2026, telling the full inside story of their comeback journey, from the silence of the military years to the night of Gwangwamun. But behind all the statistics, all the records, all the global hysteria, what do we actually take away from the story of Jimin, Jungkook, and Jhope? The first lesson is about refusing to give up at the hardest possible moment. When the world was asking whether BTS was going to disband, these three men did not sit still. Jhope took the world stage with his solo tour. Jimin released a record-breaking album while physically unable to be there to celebrate it. Jungkook kept creating and proved that his voice and performances could stand alone in any global market. They did not wait for perfect conditions. They created perfection from the conditions they had. The second lesson is about identity and roots. Naming the album Ararang was not an accident. In the middle of extraordinary global fame, with every temptation to become more Western, more mainstream, more instantly digestible, BTS chose to return to a centuries-old Korean folk song. They said, "We are proud of who we are and where we come from." And that is precisely what made the world fall even harder for them. The third lesson is about what a true fandom actually means. ARMY waited almost 4 years. For years, with no group concerts, no joint album, through controversy after controversy rolling in. But they stayed. They supported each member's solo work. They kept believing. And when that moment finally arrived, when RM said the words, "Hello, we are back," 104,000 people at Gwangwamun and millions more around the world wept together. Not because they were entertained, but because they realized that their years of waiting had truly meant something. So, to everyone who ever said BTS was over, look at where we are now. Jimin broke record after record from inside military barracks. Jhope proved himself as a world-class performer across 31 different stages. Jungkook kept writing his name into the history of global music charts. And when all 7 of them came back together, they did not just release an album. They turned Gwangwamun into the biggest stage that has ever existed. They brought millions of tourists to Seoul. They made Netflix history. They conquered the world. BTS is not over. BTS has just opened a new chapter that may turn out to be the greatest thing they have ever done. And all of us, whether ARMY or not, are witnesses to a moment that will be talked about for decades to come. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And drop it in the comments. What was the BTS moment that hit you hardest during all these years of waiting? I genuinely want to know. See you in the next one. Purple you. Purple Heart.